this webinar, and we'll share it with everybody at Baselane who is a Baselane customer, and we'll also post it on our YouTube channel. So please look out for that. And yeah, a little bit of a background story. So Baselane is starting to work with influencers and educators in real estate, and that's how we met Sofia. We were wanting to work with her. Of course, she's a very experienced real estate investor. We're going to talk about that. And I met her about a month or two ago, and as soon as I spoke to her for like 5 minutes, I was like, we need to get you on here and just put you in front of people and tell your story. It's such an amazing story. And, I just was super impressed by everything, all the different elements of the story. So today, basically, Sofia, the way we wanted to structure this is we wanted to kind of break it down into 3 different sections. We have about 45 minutes with everybody here. First, I think we have to talk about your story, your background, how you started, not your real estate business, but just your career going all the way back. Talk more about your business with your husband and how that grew, and then your entry into real estate. I'd love to just learn about that. And I also want to talk a little bit about what you're up to on the real estate side today. So I think that would be our first section for everybody. And we're actually going to poll the audience. So Jake is going to be polling the audience, and we want to just hear what people want to learn about. So we'll be a little bit dynamic and let people, guide us in sort of the second or third part of the conversation. The second part is going to be more about real estate, and there are different types of people that are joining us today. So Baselane's customer base is very diverse. We have people that are just starting out, people that have a couple of properties, and some people that have just 30, 40, 50 properties or more. But I think the vast majority of folks are probably sub 20 properties that are in the customer base, and they're wanting to learn from you. So we'll ask you some questions about how should they think about their business, how should they think about scaling, what are the unlocks to success. And then if we have time, we'll do a little bit about 2024. What do you think about this year? What's happening? What are you excited about? And we'll take some questions from the audience. Does that sound good?
Yep, ready to go.
Great. Okay, so I actually purposely didn't do an intro for you because I wanted you to talk about it. I think, just hearing from you, your personal story of how you started your career, and tell us a little bit about that and your background and your first business, and then what led you into real estate. I'd love to hear that story first.
Yeah, so myself and my husband, we met very, very young. I was 18 years old and he was 22. Both dropped out of high school, didn't have no degree, did not have any, no background of entrepreneurship, nor did we have a mentor or anybody in our family that had any kind of money. We've both come from very humble families. My parents are immigrants from Cuba at that point, and his parents, his mom worked 3 jobs. His father was a mailman in New York. I mean, so we really come from just very humble family. And when we met, he just had this mindset that he was not going to struggle the way that his family struggled. And for some reason, he just had that entrepreneur mindset. So when we met, he's like, I'm not going to be your normal 9-to-5 guy. I'm going to be, I'm going to work for myself, and I don't know what struggles is that going to come about, because I'm not going to be predictable with my income, basically. So I was like young, and I was like, okay, I let's go for the ride. I don't know how to get a business started. I didn't know anything about that. And we just went ahead and decided that we were going to just do it and see what happens. And of course, being that young with no financial means and having no education and not really knowing anything much about business, we failed a couple of times in some ventures that we had started. But we then said we are not going to stop no matter what. We kind of didn't. He has this saying that's PMA all day, every day, and that stands for positive mental attitude.
Okay.
So we were like, no matter what, we're going to always go forward and never look back, type of thing. But in this journey, I got pregnant 6 months into our relationship. And at that point, we decided that we were going to keep, the baby, and that we were going to move forward. And at that point, we're like, okay, we each need to go get a job, because now we have another person that we have to maintain, that we have to worry about, and our parents couldn't afford that. So
right.
He got 2 jobs, I got a job, and we still, meanwhile that we were working for others, we were still working on how can we be, open our business, be successful, at least to pay our bills. Forget about anything else. We just don't want to work for somebody. And in that journey, Bobby was always looking at, classified ads. Back then, there was no internet. It was the newspaper, and it was the USA Today. And he came across an ad for opening up a broker for equipment leasing. We had no clue what that meant. We were like, equipment leasing broker. Okay. So we started looking into it, and the coincidence happens that he used to work for the Better Business Bureau, and that lead popped up on his list to contact, to solicit them to get the Better Business Bureau license membership. So that was like, wow, wait. So he went, and the gentleman that owned the company fell in love with him, and he's like, you need to do this. I will help you. I'll make sure that you're successful. I'll buy the membership license if you buy the program and become one of my agents. And so it was $1,700, and we didn't have $1,700 at the time. So my mom had a few dollars put away because, that's just the way my parents were. They loved to save, even if it was $5 for that rainy day. And she saw that we were trying to struggle to get $1,700. And she goes, okay, I'll lend you this money, but you got to make sure that you pay me back, because that is all I have in case of a rainy day of how to pay our bills or buy food or whatever. So we had that pressure. So Bobby and I said, okay, that'll be fine. We'll do that. And Bobby would work during the day on the business, doing sales, looking for business, equipment brokers that would sell the equipment for us to give them the finance. And I would work during the day at a medical office. And at night I would come home and I would do all the faxing and all the typewriting stuff and send it out. And he would work at the Rusty Pelican restaurant in Miami. So
at night.
So did that for many years. And this business, we just got so infatuated with it and so focused. And we were like, we cannot allow this business to fail for many reasons. But so we started using all of the failures that we had in the other business. And what did we do wrong to make everything the opposite and make sure that this business does get off the ground and going? So we had to stop really going out, talking to friends, talking to family, doing everything, because we were so focused on making sure this was gonna get off the ground and going. And we were successful. A year later, we were both able to let go of our jobs and work into this business 100% and focus on it. And later on, that business, we, of course, if I sit here and tell you all the, all the mishaps that we had, we'll be here forever. But it was a nice struggle, but it was very educational, and made us learn a lot. And we were able to sell that business 20 something years later for $1 billion that we were able to,
and that's also, and that's an amazing achievement. I think there's a lot of learnings here, but that also led to the real estate
in the
part.
middle,
I want to come back to that, but I just want to highlight for everybody here, coming from zero, working multiple jobs for years and years, and failing several times before this one, right? Because a lot of people, I think, see the end result of somebody and they're like, oh, well, I can never be that person.
Exactly.
Right? Because they are a billionaire. Well, look at what they did and look how long it took. And that's why I loved your story, because it shows the persistence, the focus, the
perseverance, the tenacity,
tenacity, everything. And it didn't happen in a day. That's the other part is, in your story, we see a lot of social media these days talking about, hey, you can do STR and generate $15,000 a month like this. Well, no, it takes a lot of hard work. And that's what I loved about this part. And I think I love that it's getting into real estate next as the next phase of your investments. But really, I think for all of us, the frame is it's a real estate business, right? And what you did there was also a business. And
that was what allowed us to get into real estate. So Bobby and I, when we first met, we always wanted to get into real estate. but you can't get into real estate with no money. And I know that a lot of people out there say, they tell people you could get into real estate with $0. You don't need to have a savings. You could get in there. At least we cannot, testify to that. We have never been able to get into a real estate deal with no money and not have any kind of reserves or anything to be able to back us up to cover expenses on an investment. So we had never been able to do that, but we always wanted to.
And I want to share with you the poll just so you know who you're talking to here. So just a little bit of information about there's about 50 or so people live right now, and I think a lot more will see this after. So in terms of how many rental properties people own that are here, about 11% are just starting out, 0 properties, but they're on their way. A third of the people only have 1 right now, but they want to grow. And then we have 2 to 3, about 25% of people have 2 to 3. Another 26% have 4 to 10, and then 5% have more than 11. So you get a little bit of an idea where everybody is.
Awesome. I love that, because that's the way we started. So, so Bobby and I always wanted to get into real estate from the very beginning, but we were looking for a business that would produce income so that we could receive that income that we were getting on a monthly basis to be able to save it and put it into a properties. And we call that stack and rack. So all of our income, we would stack it. And once we had enough, we would rack it into an investment, right? Okay. So we were extremely tactical on our strategies when it came down to investing, because we knew that in order to own a property, you're not going to get rich day one. You're not going to make money day one. You have to be able to say, I could sustain myself. And if anything happens with this property, a tenant doesn't pay, an air conditioning breaks, a roof leak, a window, that if the property is not producing enough to be able to cover that, that you need to come out of your own pocket to cover that investment, rehab, So we always waited and we stacked our money. And in 2004 was the first time that we ever invested into real estate, actually, I'm lying. In 98 or something like that, we had a few dollars and we bought a lot and we were able to flip the lot. But that didn't get us anywhere. That was just like a little bit of a little play. And we bought a home and we lived in it for 2 years. We flipped it, bought a bigger home. But that to me really didn't count as an investment.
But you got your feet wet.
But we got our feet wet. We loved it. But in 2004, we went in on a group, our business partners and another group, and we went into condo conversion. At that time, condo conversion was huge. You would buy apartment buildings, got all the tenants, and then title each individual unit into individual condo. We didn't know anything about that business, but we had the money and we thought that we understood how to run an investment because we were running a business. So we're like, we know how to run a business. We could run a real estate investment firm. Why not?
Right.
Completely wrong, guys. That's not just because you are an entrepreneur and you know how to run a business and you have the money, you don't know how to run a real estate investment. It's completely different.
So just to recap on this, you obviously worked really hard to build and sell your first business, which was the finance.
We didn't sell it at that point. It was still running. Oh yeah.
Okay. Yes, so you were building and scaling up that business, a lending business. And then you started investing in real estate. You did a few there's personal things, but your first real investment with some partners was the condo conversion.
Correct. Still running the other business. The other business still, as a matter of fact, it's what saved us. I'll tell you the story. But we were in 2004, we invest into condo conversion. We didn't know that it takes a year to 18 months to convert them because you have to title each unit. So in all of this that we didn't know anything about condo conversion, comes 2006, the world starts falling apart. We have over $81 million in leveraged with
Wow.
apartment buildings that were probably over 5,000 or 6,000 units.
Okay.
And the world's starting to fall apart. No financing, nobody has money, and we have all these apartment buildings. So we were about to lose everything that we worked so hard for. And we had already seen attorneys to go into bankruptcy. We were like, we don't know what else to do. But we then sat down and like cuddled and we're like, wait a minute, our business is guaranteeing these loans.
Right.
We're everything we have if we go into foreclosure. So we were like PMA. We're like, we cannot, we're gonna have to figure this out.
That's the positive mental
Mental
attitude.
attitude. We're like, nope, this is not gonna, we're not going down. We already had way too many failures. We have to learn from them. We're gonna go on. So we were able to get back our units, put tenants back in.
Okay, you rented it. Okay.
Rent them all out again. Of course, the world is still doing terrible. So it wasn't like if we could get these big rents that
Right.
we're seeing now. So it was still not covering the full debt. So what did we do? My husband and our other partner went and focused on our finance company. And we're like, we need that finance company to double an income, quadruple, whatever it is, so it could cover all the debt that we have on the apartments.
So just to make sure everybody's understanding, 2006, 2007, 2008 was the big market crash and the mortgage crisis, right? And properties were overvalued and the whole thing collapsed, right? It was a huge bubble. That's what we're talking about here. And what you're talking about is you went underwater, basically. You had a huge amount of debt. You probably had a large monthly bill that you had to pay, and you weren't able to bring the cash flow even after renting it enough to cover that. So it's really important what you're sharing, because you had a business that had income, cash flow generating business that was fueling in real estate. And now you're saying it actually helped you save the investment as well.
Save the investment. Thank God for it. So whenever you have a business that's doing really well, really focus on that business, give it love, because if it wasn't for that, we would have drowned in real estate. And this is where I tell a lot of people, real estate is amazing. I tell everybody, I love real estate. It's our main source of income for us and our family. For right now, it's been for a while, but when you first start, it cannot be your main focus of income. It's just does not.
Okay, this is a great transition into sort of the second part of our conversation, which is about investing. So there's two parts to it: starting out and how do you scale. So you're already kind of talking about your view of how to approach this, because there are people that are starting out with zero properties, a couple of properties, and they're trying to figure out what to do, how to scale. Oh, sorry, how to start, how to get it going. And if I look at the poll here, there's a mix of different strategies that people want to do. Some people want to do single family, some want to do multi, some want to do short term, some fix and flip. Everybody has similar goals in terms of generating passive income, retiring early, etc. And then almost everybody wants to know how to grow. And this is what our customers all are very, very like tech focused. They all want to figure out how to invest and grow. So maybe we start with the first bucket of it. Like I have zero properties. Maybe I have one property, Sofia, and you're talking to me on one of your students. What are you teaching me? I mean, it sounds like your first thing you're telling me is, hey, make sure you have a source of income to fund your real estate.
You need a source of income that is gonna support your lifestyle, your whatever lifestyle you want to be able to support. For me and Bobby, we completely went to our bare minimum, and we were just worried about, we would not be going out on traveling. We weren't buying expensive cars. We weren't doing, going out to expensive restaurants.
You were stacking up
stacking, because our main focus is that we wanted to invest in real estate. So in order to invest in real estate, we were trying to stack all the money that we had extra, besides paying our expenses, that we had enough to be able to stack to purchase.
Okay, so that's
right?
the first part.
At that time, at that time it was those condo conversions. But when we went through that experience, we were able, luckily, to get rid of all the buildings of course, we came to the closing table with money. We weren't leaving the table with money. We were giving money to close. And then what we learned from that experiences was that, okay, we need to start small and go into the rental business, into the multifamily rental or single family rentals, because that condo conversion was just gone. So we started learning the real heartbeat of like, what's the best investment for us that we were seeing. And that rental income, that monthly income receiving from your buildings or from your units is, the best thing that you want to see, right? It's just your monthly income.
And that's a really good sort of second lesson. So you're basically saying for you, the fix and flip approach that you jumped into, obviously the timing was a little bit tricky because the market collapsed, but you realized from that experience you wanted to focus as a long-term rental investor, buy and hold, not a fix and flipper.
Right.
Is that right? Okay.
Did not exactly. We didn't do fix and flips. From that point on, we were completely long-term and, investing into, we started once that happened, that the world fell apart and we were able to get out of that. In 2011, we started doing single family home rentals, and we went one by one and started buying. Back then it was $40,000, $50,000. It was
post-crash.
Yeah. It was great. It was amazing. So
can I ask you there, why did you choose single family? Right.
Well, because we did the mistake of going extremely big. Then we saw that we were so over leveraged that we almost lost it all. And it was like, okay, no more over leverage. We're gonna buy what we can afford and learn the rental business, learn the management that is the heartbeat of being investing in any kind of rental real estate investment. Because if you don't know how to manage, you can lose the property no matter how good.
This is what you're saying is, it sounds so basic. And I know somebody said, like, when is it true? This is the training, guys. I don't know how to re-emphasize this. I remember, Sophia, I read this book from David Lindhall a couple of years ago, Multifamily Millions. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go into multifamily. I'm going to raise money. And then I said, wait a minute. I don't know anything about this business. I started with my partner. The first thing we bought was a single family home. Then we bought duplexes, and that's what we've been doing: duplex, triplex. And I have to tell you, like, what you're telling me even now resonates, because we're still learning. We're not really experts in the business because there's so many different components, and you have to keep learning and making mistakes and figuring out what not to do. So what you're saying here about, hey, slow down, figure out what you can afford, don't overextend yourself, you said. Start small and also learn the business.
Learn the business. It's the main thing when you're going to invest in real estate. You need to know the management part is extremely important. And a lot of things, a lot of people also get confused with real estate being the same overall. And that's not true. Retail is not the same as residential rentals. Storage space is not the same. Apartment buildings compared to a single family home. Airbnb is not the same as having a long-term. They just run so different. And a lot of people make the mistake of saying, I'm just going to invest in real estate, and they just invest in whatever comes first. And they don't worry about learning that specific part of whatever you're investing on.
Yeah, I agree.
It's very important to understand you have different types of tenants that are managed completely different. So don't think because I own a single family home that now I could jump into buying an apartment building that has 100 doors.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And I'll tell you a mistake I made, actually, now that you shared this part of it. Even in residential single or duplex, there are nuances that I made a mistake. We built mostly 1 to 2 bedroom units, and then all of a sudden we went for a 3-bedroom. Totally different market. And we had no idea, we didn't realize it, but normal people that are, without kids, that don't have, like, maybe just a couple they don't need 3 bedrooms. It's over there what they can afford. And we were like, wait a minute, how come nobody's renting? The
Yeah.
wrong market to build a 3 bedroom, 2 bathroom. And it went vacant for months and months. We were like, oh my gosh, we totally missed this underwriting component. So what you're saying makes a lot of sense to me. I have another question for you. You said you went for single family. What market did you start in, and how did you guys make those decisions when you were starting out?
So when we started going for the single family, the reason why we started single family was because we wanted to learn the management part. And also, again, going back to leverage, we at the point we only had a certain amount of money that
Hmm.
we had available to invest in real estate. So we were being very mindful on what we were purchasing. And back then in 2011, financing was still very difficult. So we were buying these units cash because
Okay.
so we were trying to make sure that we weren't going to go through the same thing that we had gone through just a few years ago. And that's another thing we learned later on, that also buying all these units cash, it's not the right technique as well, because now you're completely putting yourself in like, okay, I could only buy this amount instead
You're
of
liquid. Right.
if you're
Right.
not liquid. So I could leverage myself, a low leverage, and buy an extra 2, 4, 5, 6, whatever it is. But at that point, we were so freaked out about what happened to us that we were buying all these unit cash.
I see. And how did you understood? So basically, what you're saying is you were buying 100% cash, but you could have done like 70% levered or 65% with a 25 to 30% down for everybody here, just to make sure that's clear. But I have a question. You mentioned learn the management, right? And honestly, there were parts of this part where I thought I had learned it, but I haven't. So how did you guys learn the management? Did you self-manage? Did you hire a team? How did you learn the business of single family rentals as you were getting started?
So that was a trial and error, let's say, because what we had gone through, we had already learned a little bit about management and understanding. So we start again, that's why we went to starting small, because
Mhm.
what we had learned with all those big units, we were taking it down to a lower level and starting the management and reading a lot, doing seminars. We hired a coach, learning, brought in, people to work for us that had worked for management companies that knew more than us. So it's something that's very important. You always hire somebody that knows more than you. Don't ever be, that person that you're smarter just because you're the owner and you
Yeah.
have finance doesn't mean that you can't hire people that come in that know more than you in the arena.
That's an amazing, and that's a great advice. Also sounds very basic, but we sometimes do not do this.
Mhm.
I guess I have a spin on that question that I was going to ask you. Since, some of us here, maybe we don't have the resources or the capital to pay for like directly hiring somebody or things like that. If you were starting out again and you had, let's say, only 30, 40, 50 grand to start, but you wanted to learn all these things, what would you advise people to do? How do we learn about these things with less capital, just getting started, and new to the game? What do you recommend that they do to
I
learn?
would hire a coach. I mean, there's so many things right now on this. I
Okay.
wish that when we started, that we knew about having, coaches or somebody that you could hire that comes in and sets up your whole entire organization if you want to manage your own. I always like to tell everybody learn the management because it's the heartbeat of the business. But then you're talking about, hey, but I don't know it. How do I learn it? Right. And then how do I make mistakes? So hiring a coach that would
Mhm.
teach you management, or like I said, you bring in employees that know more than you, right? But if you can't afford an employee, then you need to start doing a lot of reading, taking online courses. There's so many management courses out there right now that could help you. There's so many softwares right now that would help you. But
Yeah.
you really understanding the market that you're in. Every market is so different. In some markets you could raise the rents at 18%, right? When right now nothing is, increasing that high. But when the whole increases of rents were going on, And then you had markets that you could only increase 5%, right? So you need to know, where am I going to invest, where I'm going to get the best return out of my investment. So knowing the areas, making sure that you're not going into an area that the workforce around you, there's no real big like schools or hospitals or this or that, and you're in an isolated area. Who's going to go rent from you?
Right.
And whoever's going to rent from you can't pay that expensive rent. So you have to understand, okay, so if I buy this property, I can't increase my rents on a yearly basis at this rate. This property is going to be more of the lower rent, or maybe a Section 8, depending on the type of asset that you're buying.
Right.
So
And
understanding type of assets, locations of where you're purchasing, it's extremely important.
that's
And
helpful. And so basically what you're saying is like, be more specific. It's not real estate. You have to get into the nitty gritty of, okay, what is the asset class? Is it a single family? Is it a duplex, triplex, quad, more than that? And then which market? You also mentioned like you have to know your renters. You have to know who they are, what kind of renters you're going to be dealing with. So that's what you mean by like running the
how to
business,
manage.
learning
Correct.
how to manage.
Yeah.
And then with your story, I mean, the way you guys started with single family, did you do the single family locally, or did you pick a market and focus in on a specific market when you started?
We did specific market, but we stayed local in our tri-county areas.
Okay.
We had, 3 tri-counties that we were an hour away from. One was in our backyard. The other one was 30 minutes away. We were able to drive to them. We
I
were
see.
not, yes, they were very local, I would say, because at the beginning, you should be able to drive to your asset, be able to manage it. If you're in another state, you can't manage the property. Yeah, you could probably manage the books, but not the actual asset of being there, making sure the tenants are not messing up your property, making sure that the maintenance work is being done, that the
Right.
tenants are taking care of the outside of your property. So it's very important at the beginning, especially if you're going to be doing smaller units, that you're able to drive to them.
And with your setup, obviously, I mean, compared to the average person, I think at that point you had a lot more capital to invest. But did you hire a property manager in the beginning? Did you guys like go and do it yourself to learn it like by your hands, directly when you're talking?
Again, at the very beginning, we did do management ourselves because we had gone through that tragedy of understanding we had to take over all those condo conversions, put in tenants. So we had brought in a property manager that worked for us, not a property management
I see.
company.
In-house.
There was an in-house property manager, knew more than me, knew more than all of us. We had hired an assistant property manager and a leasing agent. So we learned from them, and going through those trials that we went through in the time of the financial crisis, when we took the new investment part that we started buying in 2011, we had already learned a little bit and understood. Remember, we had a very big finance company that running a business financially gives you a little bit of a leeway, right? So we were trying to implement different tactic that we had from the other business into here. And then learning, we would go online, we would look at webinars, we would talk to other property managers, we would get all the information, read books. My husband's a researcher. He's like very involved in knowing what the economy is doing, what the market is doing. So knowing when to increase your rent, when not to increase your rent, when to put in CapEx into your properties. At the beginning, we were doing a lot of mistakes that we would put in too much capital improvements into our properties, like if we were going to live there, and then our returns were becoming, less because we were putting too much money into the property.
That's a really good point, and that's one of the reasons Baselane, which helps people organize their finances for their rental businesses and actually look at the numbers, is exactly built for that, so that you don't overinvest, you don't underinvest, but you don't overinvest, and you know what you can afford and you can
And you
track.
could underinvest as well. So you have to make sure if there's a roof leak that you're not just patching it up, because then you can't rent out that unit to the full potential of whatever that area is calling for, right? You have a roof leak. What tenant's going to be happy with you with a roof leak, and that they have to be constantly, you know, either moving their furniture or they have water in their units? Now they're going to give you bad reviews. You're not going to be able to get a tenant. So when to put the money in is you have to know, and when not to put the money in, you have to know.
I love that. And I love that you actually went, and I think I'm guessing when you started real estate, you guys had already done pretty well with the other business, but you still went and got your hands dirty and looked at these units and managed them directly in the beginning. This is a huge lesson, because sometimes I think we feel like we were already there, so we should just let people manage it for us. And if we don't understand all the different components, you're probably going to lose money at some point because you don't know it. And so I
Yeah.
love that you're saying, you're sharing this. It's a lesson you did, you lived it, so you're telling us to do the same thing. So we learned the business from the bottom up.
Yes, and I'll tell you something about management. I'm not telling you never to get management. We gave up management in 2019, which was a very blessing in disguise, because COVID came around, and I don't know what I would have done if I would have still been managing during COVID. But understanding management before you give up management to a third-party management, because some management companies, depending on your contract, they will either over improve your properties because they just want to make sure that an air conditioning breaks. They don't want to hear the tenant complaining. They'll replace it instead of fixing it. Some management company, depending on the contract, that, you know, if the more money they save, the more commission they get, right? Like more bonuses they receive. So then they'll let go and not take care of a tenant's air conditioning or a stove or a refrigerator because they don't want to spend money. And then they'll let that poor tenant go and suffer with all these appliances not working because they're trying to save money. But then other ones will just over improve because they don't have a contract, they don't have bonuses, they don't care.
Right.
Don't know when to increase the rents. They'll leave the rent the same amount that year because that tenant's such a great tenant. He's paying his rent. I'm not going to increase him. Well, I don't know if you guys all know this, but the valuation of your buildings or of your rental properties is based on your NOI.
Rents.
So
Yeah.
if you don't increase your NOI on a yearly basis, your valuation of your property is going to stay still. And it's not.
And if your costs go up, if your costs
and all your costs. Taxes go up on a yearly basis. Insurance goes up on a yearly basis. So, and all your maintenance costs, like repairs and stuff, always go up. So if you don't increase your rents on a yearly basis, your evaluation is just going to stay steady, like this.
I love it.
So you're going like this on a yearly basis. You want to go do this so that when you turn around and you say, I'm ready to sell this property, now your evaluation is up here because you're staying, you know, up to date with the market on your rent.
That's a great insight. And this is, again, it sounds like sometimes like everybody already knows this, but how many of us are actually doing it and implementing it the right way? I want to talk a little bit about the scale conversation. So let's say, you know, I've got a couple of properties now. Let's say I have 5 or 6 properties. I'm just itching to double that portfolio, and because it's going to help me quit my day job or just get me more income that I really need. But I'm hitting a wall, I'm getting stuck, or there's just some challenges. Maybe I don't have the right financing. What are your suggestions? I know it's a general question, for people that are looking to get to that level. And, you know, you've been there, you've gone from 0 to thousands of units, right? What are your recommendations for people? I mean, I see a lot of learnings already from the notes I took here, right? Biggest thing for me is the positive mental attitude, but also knowing the business. But what would you share with people? What advice do you
So
have?
what I would share is what we did. We started off with single families and we went to duplex, fourplex. We built a portfolio of about 300 plus units. I can't remember exactly. We held them for about 7 years. And then we made sure that within those 7 years, we were, you know, making sure that all the units, we were increasing rents on an annual basis, making sure all the evaluations on the property were increasing, with the maintenance were very up to date, so that when we were ready, we sold all of our portfolio and we were able to, I want to say almost double our, we invested about 30-something million into that 300 and something unit portfolio that were all small. It was below 50 units, all of them. There were duplexes, fourplex, 10, 20, 30 doors. We went increasing as the years went on. And when we sold them, we were able to make a very nice profit. And then we got that profit and then moved and scaled up to, 100+ unit apartment buildings. Where now you're talking about, okay, now you're scaling, where now your, monthly income, your NOIs are, all these buildings are really now coming in, and you're saying, okay, now I can live off, my real estate investment.
Right. That's amazing. And I want to recap a few really important things, right? Like there was always, you had a source of income, which was your business.
Still to this day.
Fueling the real estate investments. And to get that to that level, let's say, somebody's coming in and saying, okay, I want to buy 10 properties and I need, I don't know, $1 to $2 million. Still need some way to get that cash flow in to fund those deals and leverage. So that's one thing for sure. And it sounds like you took your time. It wasn't like it didn't happen right away. It sounds like you went from single family, and as you got more comfortable, you went to duplex, triplex, and bigger. Is that right?
Yep, correct. We went from duplex, triplex, fourplex. Then we got a 10 unit, then we got a 20, then we got a 40, then we got a 50. We went little by little.
How did you know when to go to the next level and take the jump over to the next size deal? How did you know that was the right time?
Well, because when we had the units stabilized and we were seeing that we had the NOIs were coming in at the return, when we would invest into a property, we knew what return we wanted on them, right? So once those buildings got stabilized and they were, you were getting the return that you looked at when you first invested into that property, and you have extra cash flow or an extra money to be able to afford to bring in another building, then it was time to do it.
Okay. Stack and rack.
Stack and rack.
That's it. I'm going to remember that forever.
Yes. And you can't just go and buy something when you don't have the financial means for it, right?
Okay. That's helpful. So it's not rocket science. Actually, I know I asked the question, but it's you stabilize the units, you continue to increase the net operating income. That's the NOI that we're talking about. And then once you were generating that extra cash from the properties as well as your other business, once you had enough to get to the next deal, whatever that deal was, that's when you guys pull the trigger on the next deal.
Correct.
Awesome. Correct. Okay. That's great. And I think
a lot of people also that are in this particular stage where everybody, your listeners are at right now, everybody loves to get that extra cash flow that comes in from the property and take it. They're like, okay, now it's mine. I'm gonna go, do this. I'm gonna go buy this. We didn't do that. We never did that. We kept on getting that money that would come in from those, that whatever was left over, we would put it back into the business. Either make the properties, improve the property so the evaluation could go up, or stack it to wait to buy the next one.
That's super helpful. And this is another one of the things we talked about on Baselane. We literally actually have now created a demo account where we teach our customers about putting away the next deal fund. So you can create a virtual account inside of a bank account, and it's called deal number 2 or the next deal or whatever that name you want to call it. And you put the money from the earnings from one account to the other account so that you keep it there to get you to the next level. And so that's just another reminder from Sofia. And then I know we talked a lot about learning, and there's people I think are going to ask questions soon, but I do want to touch a little bit on what you're up to today in the real estate side. So I want to talk a little bit about that and get your perspectives on what's going on in the market and how you're thinking about real estate investing these days.
Yes, I'll get into it, but real quick, I want to give them a little bit of a tip or something I could give them as knowledge. Everybody should have a little criteria of what they are looking to invest in. How much money do I have free to invest? what area do I want to invest in? What should my return be? So that way, you know exactly, don't waste your time or a realtor's time or anybody investor's time that you don't know these certain criteria, because that makes you stick to your investment project
Yeah.
or your projection, and not like, because for example, everybody that's listening to us right now, if you can't afford, right, buying 100-door property, why are you even thinking about it, going to look at it, thinking about it? Don't waste your time. Focus on what your criteria is, what your project is today. For you that are starting, I would tell you, hold for like 3 to 4 year max. Sell, make sure that your evaluation and continues, right? That you're up on top of your evaluation, because that is the most important part of your investment, is making sure that your building or your duplex or your single family evaluation continues to grow on a yearly basis. That's the most important.
Right.
3 to 4 years, sell everything you have. Now you have a new set of criteria and goals and what you want. And that changes constantly. Bobby and I have changed ours every 3 to 4 years. It continues to change, even to this day. It
That's
changes.
amazing. Yeah.
Something, if you want to scale, that's very, very important.
I think this cannot be overemphasized enough. While we're talking about focus, I think we're all guilty of it, because there's a lot of shiny objects out there. There's YouTube, there's Instagram. Somebody just bought some crazy deal in Iowa, and you're like, oh my gosh, how do I get in on that?
Do that too. I
But
want to.
what you're talking about is, what is your buy box? Write it down, print it out, put it on your mirror,
Keep
and
focused on that.
focus on your buy box. And I love you said how much cash do you have to invest, right? That was one thing.
Number one, that's your
Number
number
one.
one, is
What's
how
your
much
area?
you have to invest. Don't touch your what covers your personal expenses. That
Right.
doesn't count.
Right.
What do you have to
Start
invest?
stacking, start
Yeah.
saving. Okay. Number two was
Asset
area,
class. What
area and
asset
asset class. Yeah. Okay.
area and asset class. Those three are very, very important.
And then the return, like
The return, what do you want? A 5%, a 6%, a 10%? I don't know the area you're in. Area is different. But if
yeah,
you're going to invest in something and it comes back to you and they're like, oh, it's only going to give you a 2% return, but you know that you want a 5 or 6, why are you looking at that property? Move on.
right.
Right? Stop. Don't waste your time. There's
And if you folks don't know or want to learn how to calculate the return, we have a free calculator on baselane.com under resources that literally will show you what the return can be. I just want to talk about this because I think this is really important what you said, but people need a tool to be able to actually quickly calculate what that is. And if you don't know, you can ask the real estate agent. They can help you with this information. And like if you're walking around trying to figure out what is it that we need. Here's an example. So this is something that actually used to be a spreadsheet that I had, and I converted it into a calculator here. So you can literally play with the purchase price. You can plug in the rents. There's a lot more advanced settings you can play with down here. And while you're walking around, and then you can say, okay, this is what it's going to yield for me. And the cash on cash return is a popular metric. And if that's your target and that's what you want to get to, figure out what the target is and make sure your deal is going to get you that. Anyway, I just wanted to quickly share that. I know we're getting over time, but
okay. So real quick,
yeah.
I'll tell you what I'm up to today.
Yes.
Today we have about 2,500 units. We have mostly all A to B asset class.
Okay.
We don't have anything smaller than 150 units per building. Our biggest is 440 units. And we are in Florida, Texas, and Tennessee.
Okay, wow.
The newest thing that we have that we had never done before is that we have our first ground up project that we developed. We bought it during COVID, the land, and we finished it about 10 months ago, and it is at 98% rent, leased up.
Amazing.
It's amazing. Yes, it's amazing. It normally takes about 18 months to get there. We did it in less than like 10 months. maybe even
Amazing.
10 months we got there. We have another ground up project in Orlando, in Oviedo, Orlando, and also one in Tennessee. So those are something that is, again, that's our new credit box, our new little criteria box that we're doing ground up. And again, that's something that we had in our wish list for many years. But if all of you know, ground up, you don't make no money. You have to buy the land free and clear. You got to do a construction loan and put money in as the time goes. So it is taking money out of your pocket until it's developed, and then until it's not completely rented up, you're not making money. So for like a good 3 to 4 years, you're making $0. So you have to make sure that you have another income. We had all of our portfolio that, makes
To
us
sustain the investment.
invest, that makes us enough money that was able to support for us not to make any money on these projects. But these projects are great when you can't afford them. I would never suggest a newbie to get into a development deal, but
Yeah.
that was one of our scaling dreams and goals, and we were able to get there. So
Yeah, that's amazing. Congratulations. And I know we're pretty much at time, but I want to open it up to questions. If you can stay for a few more minutes, and I think we'll skip the last question and just get into questions if people want to ask questions. So please, in the Q&A section, feel free to submit your question. So we'll do a 5 to 7 minute round here with Sophia and make sure that we get you more insights. So Jake, if you want to help with the moderation of that, and hopefully if people have questions, feel free to submit it here. And we'll give it a minute or two to allow people to ask any questions. Yeah, I think that's interesting that you're doing ground up. I was reading a report this morning that the lack of inventory in the country, I think some banks project it's like in the millions, like 2 million, some say 3 million. So there's a huge demand, but there's not enough supply in the market. And I think that's been there since the 2006-7 crash. So it's great to see that you're doing adding units to the demand here. Okay, so we've got a bunch of questions coming in. So first question is from Candace Chan. Could you please share your experience on raising capital? Thank you so much. So I don't know if you have raised capital for real estate because she had, remember, the income producing business, which unlocked real estate. So I'm not sure if that's relevant.
Yeah, I am so sorry, but unfortunately, we have been very blessed and never had to. We don't do any kind of funds. We don't do any of that. So I'm unfortunately not able to assist you with that. But there is so many different coaches out there that do help you get started with that and how to do it. And you go to a network group, a mastermind group in real estate.
Yeah, absolutely. And
there's so many out there. If I would tell you that, there's a bunch.
Reach out to us. We'll connect you to some of our affiliates.
Yeah, I don't want to say names because I don't want them later on that they come back at me and they're like, but there's many. I speak at a lot of their events. If you see them, you'll see me speaking at them. There's so many, but unfortunately, we just don't do that.
Yeah, no, fair enough. And there's another question. There's two themes of questions. So one is, you talked about staying local. So the question is, what would you do if your local market produces bad returns and it's too expensive? What's the next best option?
So then I would try to go to the outside skirts that'll probably be an hour or 2 hour away from you, that you're still able to drive to the properties. Try to go to the suburbs of that area. I'm sure that if the area that you're in is very expensive, like we're in Miami, so I understand we don't buy in Miami because of that reason. But all of the suburbs like Fort Lauderdale, Coral Springs, they all give you great returns, and they are right around the area. You're still able to drive to them.
Got it. That's helpful. And I'm gonna ask. I think there's a question about how much do I need to invest in multifamily. That That's a really hard question to answer. You really need to like look at the deal size. A multifamily could be 4 units or 100 units. So really, it depends on what type of specific size you're
And
going
I would
for.
tell you that you need at least 35% of whatever you're gonna buy so that you could have enough for closing costs, a little bit of a
That's a
reserve,
good tip.
and not to over leverage yourself. I wouldn't put 20% down on a multifamily, but I know
Okay.
a lot of people do, but anywhere from 30 to 40% of whatever you're gonna buy.
That's awesome. And you need more cash reserves for
Sure.
more bills because more units need more cash on hand.
Correct.
And let's see here. So, what is a good ROI minimum target for a multifamily type of deal? Like, I don't know if you use a specific metric. Do you use cash on cash, or what's your target metric? And then
So
what's
we like to go cash on
cash
cash.
on cash?
Yeah,
And
because
for
we
mo
leverage, so we don't buy, we don't buy the apartment buildings completely free, cash
right,
free. We do put leverage, so cash on cash is really what we go
cash on
based
cash.
on.
And do
Yeah.
you have a? I know that you've started with sort of different types of areas like C and so on, and now you're more in A and B. Did you have a certain target in C, B, A?
Yeah, but yes, of course. But every market changes right now in today's market.
Yeah.
Wasn't when we started. When we first started in 2011, we were in double digits. And today
Okay.
you're in single digits and you to find them, it's hard.
It's
But
hard.
we try minimum 5%
Minimum
return.
5%.
Minimum in today's market. If you would have asked me this when we first started, double digits or nothing.
Yeah.
But you got to work with the market that you're in and where what state is he in or what it all depends too.
Right.
Miami, you're not buying nothing,
Low
the
cap rate market. Yeah.
2%.
Right. Right. Very
So it's
mature
like New
market.
York
Right.
City, I don't know, like California, it depends where you're at. But for us, we always like to go, obviously, the highest cap rate, I mean, cash on cash that we can receive is
Right.
normal, but don't invest in these really populated areas like Miami, California, New York, Vegas. You're not going to really make a lot of money.
And probably the deal size is so expensive, it doesn't make sense for you. Those usually end up being institutional capital
What
that
are the
can do it.
suburbs areas? Suburb areas of all these places is where, when you first start, I tell you all guys, look into a Section 8 apartment buildings, even duplexes, even single family. Section 8, if you underwrite them properly, just like you underwrite a normal tenant, you will be safe haven because you are receiving that check from that government every
Right.
third of the month, no matter what. A lot of people have a bad taste for Section 8 because they're going to mess up my property. Oh, they're going to put a lot of people in there. Well, if you underwrite them just like a normal tenant, you will be okay. You'll
That's
be
a great
fine.
tip. I have some friends who are doing Section 8 only in the North and Midwest, and they love it. Again, different
They
asset
love
class,
Section 8.
different strategy, but cash flow is king, and it's you're right. And one more question, maybe.
I
How do you
don't know
feel?
about that though. We're gonna have to talk about this.
Oh, sorry.
But
Cash flow is queen. You're right. You've changed the phrase. We need more T-shirts about this. I don't know if you have a T-shirt, but if
I
you,
do. I trademarked it. I have backpack,
I'd
t-shirt.
love to get a T-shirt. I'm a
I'll
girl's
send
dad.
it
Send
to
it.
you. I'll send it to you.
Um, how do you source properties in competitive markets? Do you have tips for investors trying to find off-market deals? I mean, I know this can go many ways, but what are your sort of ways of getting deal flow?
So networking with the right people, and knowing that you are serious, again, giving them your credit box, your investment box. What is it that you're looking for? So when you're talking to them, this is what what I want. If you bring me this deal, I'm gonna close on it. But if you go to try to get an off market deal and you're looking for a fourplex and they bring you a 50-door unit, you're gonna waste their time and they're gonna say this guy's a joker. I'm
Right.
not
Don't get
bringing them no
distracted.
I'm not bringing them off market deals. They're not a closer. See, we get off market deals all the time, and because they know that when they bring us something, they know exactly what we're looking for. And that if they bring us what we want, we're going to close on it no matter what. We're not, we're not going to play around with the pricing, with this, with that. We're going to close on it when they need it to be closed on. So making sure that you network with the right type of realtors, with CPAs, with financial advisors. Say, hey, I'm an investor for this. Here is my box. If you bring me anything that fits this box, I'm ready to pounce and I'm going to close on it right away. They take you serious and they will bring you all off market deals. Wholesalers are great people to be in touch with, to say, hey, if you find something really good and this fits my box, I'm going to be your person that you're going to be able to let go of these deals like this.
I love that. And also like putting your money where your mouth is and doing what you say you'll do, because that matters, right? The
One thing in the real estate industry, boy, if you don't do what you say, you will be X'd out and they just won't come to you. They have too many people and too many investors to go to be coming to you, and that you're, oh, okay, I'll look at it, I'll let you know tomorrow. Da, da, da. No. So be serious about what you are looking for and networking with the right group of people that have off-market deals.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to recap a little bit and give you a chance to say one last word. So, we talked, I have a lot of notes here, but we talked about your background story. And one of the key things I got from that was starting at zero, but positive mental attitude, PMA, right? All the time. You said cannot fail was the reality that you were living in. And so you figured it out and you worked hard for years and years. It sounds like decades to get to a point where you were able to become the big real estate investor. It didn't just happen in one day. And when we talked about starting out, you said have a source of income for folks. So that means your job, your other business, whatever you got going on, you needed to fuel your real estate investments. You said to start small. You learned from that. You said to start small and make sure that you learn the business. I think we talked at length about this, which is learn the business and all the different aspects of it. And if you think you know everything, you don't. So go work with people that are coaches, educators, read books, learn materials online, all kinds of things to get there. You said focus, which I'm remembering here, which I think is really important, especially with the buy box that we talked about, and knowing your markets, your asset types, how much money you have to invest, your target returns. And then I think for the people who are trying to scale, and just recapping this for everybody, you said, okay, well, you have to start small. You have to stack and rack. So just repeating this for everybody. Everyone's like, how do you scale? Well, stack and rack.
Stack and rack.
Right? Like generate cash flow from your properties, improve the NOI for each of them each year, manage them well, and then generate that cash, bring in the extra cash you have from other income sources like your job, and go to the next level. That way, once you can afford the next level. And so just recapping that, but I wanted to give Sofia, you a chance, maybe any last parting words of advice for everybody before we wrap up.
Yeah, real estate investment is amazing. I love it. It's just remember this, especially in the residential rentals. No technology, no robot, nobody can ever replace the roof over a person's head. So this investment is for a lifetime. No matter if the market is good or bad, you're always going to have a tenant in there. It might not be the best rent cost at the present time, but you will always remember this real estate cycle is always doing this. You'll always have the land as an asset, so you're never going to really lose unless you are a terrible investor and don't learn the investment. But it is one of the best investment you could ever do. And if you do it right and you follow a bunch of the stuff that I just told you, and you continue to scale your investment, you will be living really nicely. And it does not come overnight, guys. It does take time. You do have to have double jobs at the beginning. Don't get discouraged. Stay focused, learn. Perseverance will get you there, but real estate is amazing. So
awesome. And where can everybody follow you? What's the best way to just keep in touch with what you're up to? And
Yeah, so my social media handles on Instagram, it's official Sofia Castro, and that is spelled Sofia. And also on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube. We have a YouTube channel that's called Upsiders. So
Upside.
we also, because we teach a lot of people real estate, we have a little community that you could join that we, have, and we also have a mentoring program that we provide for real estate investors.
Awesome. So we'll actually send all of that out to everybody as well in the follow-up. So this is the Instagram channel, but I also follow you on LinkedIn. So we'll send some of that information out as a follow-up in case everybody wants to just make sure that they connect with Sophia. And man, I cannot thank you enough. This was extremely, extremely helpful. Let me just, sorry, I lost my screen here. Thank you so much for being so generous with your time and being so open to sharing your story, but really amazing advice that I think all of us can use and implement. And thank you for being a motivator too. I wanted to say that because I see you out there, and I think it's motivating to see somebody like yourself really like, sharing so much now that you've achieved so much. So we really appreciate it. And we'd love to have you back too in the future.
Anytime. Thank you so much. I'm always love to be giving value to people that love to accept it and take it on and run with it. So I'm glad
Wonderful.
I was able to come and share any information that I could give to you all, and reach out. I always love to, I have a Q&A session in my social medias that you could request and ask any questions. We do that once, I believe, once a month, and you
Okay,
could go
awesome.
there and ask any
We'll
questions.
send the link out for that, and be sure to reach out there, everybody. So thank you for your time, and have a great evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.